Recorded live, coast to coast, it's the Nissan Nation podcast. From camping, racing, and all points in between. The NNP is your Nissan Nation podcast. Now start your engines and welcome in the hosts, David and Danny.
What is going on, Nissan Nation? How you doing tonight?
The nation of Nissans?
Hey, here in America, buddy.
America Nissan Nation.
My name is David Boyd, and that guy across the U.S. there is Mr. Daniel Grooters.
Also known as the original Groot.
That's right, buddy. The big deal, the head guy, the danamigo.
I was a Groot before the tree was cool.
That's
you know
right,
what
man.
I'm saying?
You got wood before that dude did, didn't you?
Yeah, buddy. I've had wood way long before that Groot came up.
That's right, man. So, Dan, how's West Coast tonight?
Sick. It's pretty hot out here, man. I was at the pool. It was like 100 degrees, catching a tan, son. Got my wave curling naturally, nice and blonde, getting, lightening up for the summer.
That's right.
Getting ready, man. We're feeling good out here.
Dude, Gone Moab is right around the corner. Are you pumped and ready?
Tell me about it. I'm pumped, but it's like there's so much to do by then. I got shirts and stickers and everything going. But good news, bro. Big good news. We got the truck. I don't want to say we got it started, but we have
got the key in the ignition
plugged in. We got everything plugged in on the race truck. I was told that we may have a running vehicle as of tonight. I won't know until tomorrow, but they had the harness done. They had tech support on the line. They were working fervently to get it running. So I mean that was our next deadline on it. So that should be showing up at Moab, just looking a beast and ready to cruise around and do a little give some rides and stuff on some flat land.
That's right, buddy. And I mean, I can't wait I'll be flying out there that Tuesday, and I can't wait to see this thing, man. I mean,
well, you're not allowed to see it. It's going to be draped, and people and the cool people are going to be able to see it. But
so they take
Dave.
They get rides from under the drape.
Yeah,
floating out there like a ghost.
Yeah,
the ghost that you brought back from the dead, man.
The ghost of Xterra's past is what we call it.
That's right, man. So big news. I posted it up on Facebook page, I guess about a week and a half ago. I got to ride in the brand new Maxima, man.
Yeah, you were slinging me pictures nonstop while you were doing it.
Dude,
that thing looked sweet.
Dude, years of knowing people that work out there and stuff has finally paid off, and I got to get in the production vehicle, man. And it was just the base model, but if this is a base model, good God, I don't want to see a loaded version, because this thing was freaking killer. And of course, there's pictures on our Facebook page, but Dan, it's a rocket ship, buddy. I thought my G35, in its day was fast. My car's got nothing on this thing. And
well, it looks like a rocket ship. When you look at it, it looks like it's fast. You're like, is that thing fast? And then apparently it is.
You sit in the driver's seat and you feel like you're in a jet fighter's cockpit. Everything's wrapped around you, and it just feels perfect.
When you sat in it, what were the words that came to mind? Like, did you sit down and you go, man, this thing is a grumpy stallion, or like, man, this thing is like a burnt merkin? Like, what words came to your lips?
I can't describe it, man. It's like sitting in a 4-door sports car, and I think that line is cheesy with them, but it is a 4-door sports car. Of course, the new car aroma when you open that door, it just,
the stench just drives your.
Is there anything
that's wild?
Is there anything that would give man more wood than that new car aroma smell?
I mean, I can think of I don't know, maybe 36 to 48 things roughly.
Double
but
D
it does.
things.
It definitely does. I know what you mean.
But yeah, I won't go into it because we've probably wore this Maxima out for a couple podcasts, but 100 mile an hour in this car was like nothing, man. And this, you can't really tell it's a CVT transmission in this thing. We clicked it over to sports mode and took it out, and them little ponies wanted to get up and go. So I'm super excited. The thing hits showroom, I think, end of May. So,
oh wow, that's coming up. That's cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
They had their big official launch of it here in Smyrna, Tennessee. So
I'm excited to pretend that I have money and go con some poor salesman into letting me test drive it.
Hey, take the Xterra that you've got with no front end up there and say, I'm looking to trade it in.
Yeah. What do you mean no front end? It's got headlights now, man.
So, Dan, is that your daughters in the background?
This is, I got little Sophie here.
Can she say hi?
Sophie, can you say hi to the podcast?
Hi.
Yeah, that's Sophie's debut podcast.
That's right.
Announcement.
That's right. She'll get her broadcast card now, and she'll have the way things are going, she'll have her own reality show after just those little words.
Yeah, she's going to be the real big deal when it comes down to it.
That's right. I bet she's Daddy's big deal right now.
Mm-hmm. She knows.
That's right. So, let's see. I don't know if you've paid attention to the Facebook page, Dan, but Mr. Miles Kevin Brazili, I'm horrible at pronouncing names.
I think Miles Kevin Brazili is definitely the name that he goes by every day.
The dude dropped
Miles Kevin Brazili.
The dude dropped was it a 240? I think it was. He dropped on our Facebook page, man. Killer ride, and I wanted to give him a little shout out. And if you're listening and you want to show us your ride, man, please post up. We definitely want to see what our listeners are driving. I don't care if it's a 1984 Sentra, man. Post up and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, that thing was super sweet. I saw it. It made me very happy to see.
Well, then he shows his next ride, man. It's a damn 350 or 370Z. I was like, good God, could you have more cool cars in the background there?
Mm-hmm.
But
some people get all the fun.
Dan, I don't know if you've got to pay attention. Mr. Adam Carolla, huge Nissan Datsun fan, just released a documentary on Paul Newman.
Yeah, he's also an extremely funny character. I used to listen to his radio show, man. That guy was hilarious.
Right
but,
on, man.
Dude, what a cool fact that we have such a cool guy that's also a Nissan dude, you know?
And he's just as grumpy as I am, so you know.
Yeah.
But man, I got to see the kind of trailer for this thing, and I'm a car guy, and I do remember, I'm going to date myself, I'm 40 years old or so. I do remember seeing Paul Newman race a little bit, and what a big deal that was. And of course then it got into the Newman Haas IRL cars and the Indy cars and stuff.
Right.
But you know, the guy won 4 national championships as a driver. I don't know what there's Doc McDreamy or whatever his name is, Patrick Dempsey or whatever his name is. Yeah, he kind of toys around with racing now too, but this guy was the real deal, man, and he didn't get into racing until he was like 45 or so years old. But it was cool to see all these old like 280s and stuff in the highlights of this, him racing around. And I know Adam Carolla, who is a huge Paul Newman fan, I know he owns several of these cars and actually races them, you know, pretty often. Every few months he takes these cars out. I can't wait to see this. I mean, he's got people like Mario Andretti on this thing. Robert
Jay
Redford,
Leno. I mean, there's a lot of big names that are in here that you know,
Tom Cruise,
that are just
man.
big car guys, and you know, big names just all around.
Right. So if you like history of Nissan and Datsun, it's definitely worth checking out. And does she want to say something else? Is that?
No, she's just watching us podcast, man.
Well, so if you guys get on Facebook, I think it's on Adam Carolla's Facebook page, and I know it's on YouTube. Look up Winning.
We'll post up the YouTube video on our Facebook page. Go to our Facebook page. We'll slap that YouTube video on there for you guys all to check out.
What a great idea, Dan.
That way, you know, technology is my forte.
That's right.
So is a Mickey's. It's also it's my forte.
Word.
The Mickey's.
Mickey, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Mickey.
No.
Oh, sorry. I'm a product of the 80s.
It was a
sorry.
beer joke. Sorry. So anyways, what else we got going on Nissan history?
We've got some listener questions, Dan, and who better to give?
I wanted to answer a couple of those.
Who better to give answers to these questions than Dan? Let's see.
Sometimes they call me Dan's the Answer Man.
Let's see, Dan. Kelly O'Neill wrote to us and says, "Is it worth it to trade out manual hubs on a stockish 2004 Xterra? If so, why?"
I personally would say yes. I've had a 2004 Xterra, and I went minor wheeling with it and broke a hub. And luckily, it just ticked all the way home and didn't explode and stuff. But they're not the most stout items, and they're all automatic. And unless they're serviced regularly and you never take it into water and stuff like that, they're gonna go out. And
most of the times you probably never know it when it's out either.
Yeah, and I think it's just best to have have something new that you can turn on and off, just by spinning it with your hand. It's not that big of a deal to turn on and off, especially if you don't go off-roading that much. It's, it's kind of peace of mind or whatever.
Sure.
They're not crazy expensive. I think you can find them on xterraperformance.com for a very reasonable price. They're easy to install.
30 minutes probably
I
aside.
would say absolutely.
Yeah, it's probably 30 minutes aside. Very, very super easy to install. Yeah. Let's see, Mr. Daryl Townsend, are there any plans for a factory pre-runner to come out and compete with the Raptor Reaper? Well, let's see, the Reaper, I'm not even going to class that in the same thing as a Raptor.
Is that even for sale?
The Reaper is an aftermarket company.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Let's see, I don't see Nissan getting in that right now. I think they're just trying to get the truck launched, let alone.
I would say that there's a 87.29% no on that. The only reason I put 89.27 is because the rest of the percentages are standard randomness that I cannot control. But yeah, I think Ford and the Raptor, I think they snagged it, but real quick with the a lot of off-roaders, because the F-150 sells so well, they were able to get that thing out and into the market and stuff for the cool guy owners,
the $80,000 owner guy.
Yeah, but it's the Raptor's still kind of a look over here, check out this sweet truck item. It's not it's not quite a.
You're not going to go haul some lumber in that thing, I don't think.
Yeah, people do, but don't get me wrong. It's a sweet truck, but it's not in Nissan's wheelhouse. No matter how many people want it to be. It would be super rad if they did, but it's definitely not in Nissan's wheelhouse. They've never even hinted at making anything like that. So if you don't see any Nissan hinting at anything like that, you won't see it. If you see a hint towards that, or they leak a picture, then maybe you can start considering the questions. But they've never even took a step towards that.
Right.
The Pro 4X, Xterra, and Frontier and Titan is the closest thing they've got, and they never really marketed that like
in the two-wheel
extremely.
Desert Runner, I think that they do.
Yeah, the Desert Runner. Those are just trim packages, really, when it comes down to it. So. I would say that's an absolute no, Daryl Townsend.
All right.
And I am very sad with you in the fact that it's not happening, but that's the way it is.
That's the way it goes. Let's see, Mr. James Soto, the man, the myth, the legend from the Xterra forums, chimed in. Let's see.
Big J Sote.
Let's see. He says, if sales of the new Cummins Titan meet or exceed Nissan's goals, do you see them taking a crack at commercial trucks? What else you got there? Or making a dually if the market demands it. Or will more likely Toyota come out with a Me Too diesel Tundra first? I don't get the last part, but what do you think, Dan? Are they going to make commercial vehicles?
I think they are not 100% sure yet. That's my official, totally uneducated opinion on it.
Well, I think
I really think that they're really trying to bust into the market with a slightly new take on the truck market, where nobody's really making F-150 isn't running with a diesel in it or whatever. So I think they're trying to reinvent that small portion of the market and try and get a portion. But I don't see them in the near future coming out with the dually. They may 2 years down the line or something like that bump up into the 1 ton or whatever. I don't
really see them wanting to play in that 250 350 category.
No. It's not right now, at least.
Most of your loaded trucks like this XD, whatever they're going to have, like a platinum or silver edition or something they call it, that thing is going to be priced at $60,000 no matter what. So there's no reason to do a dually when you've got that diesel that's going to probably tow 12 to 14,000 like it was nothing anyway. So
yeah, and they're making it to be more of a an everyday driver kind of a utility truck, as opposed to that big, got to have this for the ranch. I mean,
Sure.
this is the city driver diesel, I guess you would say.
Right.
And at the Nissan or the Texas truck meet, it showed up out there, and they took a couple videos of it, and it sounded quiet. I think it's going to be on par up there with the what Ford has right now, which is a very nice quiet diesel. So I definitely think that sales for the first 2 years are going to be a huge factor in how they proceed with their marketing, with their production, and with their future goals for the truck line.
Right. And of course they've already talked about they want to do a little V6, white package truck like everybody else offers. So I don't ever see the diesel wanting to get into that market. You're paying such a premium for that engine, so I don't see where your everyday guy that's carrying lumber or something to a job site is going to need that diesel right now. If you do, you're going to buy it probably 2 years old used. You're going to get that luxury package, and where it's affordable for you. Let's see, we got one more from what is it? It's Mr. Daryl Townsend again.
It's not a question, though. Daryl Townsend has a statement. He wants to make a statement.
That's right. Let's see. He wants that 5.6 liter option in an Xterra or Frontier with straight axles instead of the independent front suspension in the 4-wheel drive.
And Daryl, I fully agree with you. I think that is probably going to be happening. I'm guarantee that Nissan will be putting a straight axle, probably a Dana 60 in all the Xterras,
sure,
starting next year.
Sure.
And the 5.6, what they'll do is they'll bump up the horsepower to about 700 to 800 horsepower.
It'll be on the NASCAR circuit, right?
That should be, yeah. It should be all set up, ready to go.
Daryl Waltrip's going to start driving it.
Daryl, start saving your money because we know that is coming.
Dick Chirkle's going to be on that one, buddy.
Yeah, Daryl, I feel your pain. We obviously know that that's never going to happen.
Sadly, I think the Xterra is no more. So
yeah,
maybe Frontier.
Even the Jeep guys are probably going away from IFS.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that being a Southern California boy, IFS isn't the end all be all for me, and I don't hate the IFS, and I like long travel suspension, so I will not be requesting an IFS Xterra next year.
You see these on these forums, on these truck forums, all these guys are, we want the straight axle back. We want the straight axle back. But there was a reason you went away from that. And it wasn't because of it, that it wasn't a beefy system and a great system. And obviously on the trails, you get all these killer flex out of it. The problem with it is it rode like shit. And I'm going to be honest, and I hate to be so blunt on the family-oriented Nissan podcast, but it really, it's not a great system. It's a dinosaur system. The IFS rides so much better. Now on the trails, maybe you see it lose a little bit, maybe you don't.
I would say unless you hit serious trails where you're four low end crawling, it is not a better system. I mean, fire roads, dirt roads, where you every once in a while you put it in 4-wheel to get over a little rock quarry or whatever. It's not, IFS with a locker in the back, the Pro 4X system will get you most places where people want to just get and go. Straight axle is absolutely one of the best systems for, a little bit more of an extreme off-road vehicle.
Right. And I think where straight axle benefits from, it's less moving parts, as far as...
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is, like, your off-road guy does want that system for just the dependability of it. But as far as the ride, even off-road, I mean, the IFS rides so much better, and you're starting to see it creep over into the serious off-road market of, look at King of Hammers. I think there was a dozen vehicles out there this year that was
there's a
IFS.
ton of guys that are running IFS out in Hammers this year.
So
yeah, I was Googling them, and you wouldn't believe what they got out there too, with those IFS. I mean, you might as well have a straight axle the way those axles were set up. I guess you could call them half shafts.
Right.
Were set up. Those things are just beasts.
Much like Nissan in their transmissions going to CVT, I think, sorry, buddy, I think IFS is here to stay until they develop some other super wimpy package that, we can go to the malls.
Everybody will hate on.
So
what else we got going, Dave?
Well, tonight we're going to interview Mr. Greg Childs of Nicoclub. Yeah. For those that don't know, Greg owns Nicoclub, and it's pretty much, I think it's second, maybe It's almost the first largest all.
It is the coolest Nissan club in the entire Spaniverse.
Right. I think the forum itself is almost second in the world, maybe, as the size of it.
Probably first-ish.
Nah, I think Volkswagen's got them beat on it.
Probably first.
I'm going to argue with you. I think it's Volkswagen.
Volkswagen?
Guten Tag.
Those dirty Germans? No way, man. Volkswagen.
Didn't we fight them in a war, and now they're winning the battle of forums? What the hell?
No way, man. No way.
All right. But anyways, we've got to know Greg just slightly, and you guys are going to really love this. This is going to be a two-parter interview because we just kept going on, and Greg's so knowledgeable about Nissan, the brand. I mean, he's just knowledgeable about the auto manufacturing anyways, but this was a gem to interview. And anything you want to say before we get started with this, Dan?
Not scientifically at all. I think Greg is a huge name to be talking to.
Exactly.
And I'm stoked for our listeners to be able to kind of get an ear into the Nissan world that Greg lives in and marches in every day. He is an absolute and total true Nissan enthusiast.
Exactly.
And I think it's just it's awesome that us little fish get to pick his brain and chat with him.
That's right. So if you're on your treadmill listening to this, sorry guys, you're going to get a workout tonight. If you're in your car sitting around, you may want to do another lap to work because this is a long interview, even split in half. It's probably about 40 minutes each half of it. So get ready.
But it's worth it.
It is very worth it. If you're a car guy, you're going to love this. If you're not a car guy and you're just kind of, I like something to listen to. The guy can talk cars and he can talk them very elegantly. So without anything else to say, Dan, let's get to that interview.
Do it.
All right. Tonight we got Mr. Greg Childs on the phone. Well, I won't say the phone, on the web. How you doing tonight, Greg?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
For those that don't know, Greg is the owner of Nicoclub, which I'm sure if you're a Nissan fan, you've had to been on his forum at some point. And how many forums do you own now, Greg?
Well, it's kind of a loaded question. We've ultimately Nicoclub is where everything funnels into. So if you're on dotsonforum.com, if you're on one of the Q45 pages, if you're on any of those additional sites, then if you're posting, then you're on Nicoclub. So it's kind of the central hub for everything that goes on. But we've got, I think, at last count, we've got between 36 and 40 different vehicle-specific sites. So, but like I said, they all draw traffic in, and everybody winds up on Nicoclub, which is the actual forum site.
Right. How did you get involved with this? I mean, I know Nico's been around for years and years and years, but many of our listeners probably don't know the history of some of these forums.
It goes way back, the early 2000s, and actually it goes way back before that. In the mid 90s, there was a bulletin board. Well, actually, before that, there was an email mailing list going on for 240SX owners, and so that was real successful. And we were on a Yahoo group. If you guys are, some of you are old enough to remember the Yahoo
I do remember
groups.
those.
And there was a Yahoo Q45 group, or maybe it was Yahoo Infinity group, and then there was a Yahoo Nissan group. The Infinity group was really well attended and just a bunch of really neat guys. And I jumped on there. I had bought a Q45. I got on there and met a bunch of the guys, and I was like, this is a great community. And at my core, I'm a connector. I like to bring people together to share ideas and information. So, before we had Facebook and all this stuff, the idea was, let's get these people together in a place that doesn't suck. And at the time, Yahoo really did suck. It was, you could post something and then you had to wait a certain amount of time before you could post again, and then you got bombarded with ads. So anyway, long story short, we organized basically like a merger. We set up the forum. We told the Yahoo group, hey, if you guys want to go, jump in on this endeavor with us, meet us over here. And we pretty much decimated that group. I mean, everybody left. And then the Nissan group followed suit, and all of the 240SX people. So by then it had morphed into 240sx.org. So that was really the birth of Nicoclub, and it used to have a colossally long URL. It was NissanInfinityCarOwners.com.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, yeah, that's not going to work. So that was the birth of it, and it just took off from there, and the demand was for a one-stop place for everybody to get their information and whatnot. So, and it's been 100 miles an hour ever since.
So you really like the 240 is the car that kind of brought the attention to Nico in the beginning?
Yeah, it's kind of how we started out. I mean, it was a strong, you got to have traffic if you're gonna take off like that, and it was just perfect timing. I mean, again, this is before Facebook. This is before we had all those types of things going on. So people were really starving for a place to get together and share information, and the 240SX was just huge, and people were modding those things just left and right, and
sure.
So
and that kind of was the car of the 90s. It seems like, far as a little tuner
it's
car.
still a huge hitter, right, in the Nissan world. As far as it's one of more the you think back on all the American muscle cars and the the cool cars of the day or whatever, and the 240 is probably one of Nissan's coolest
totally.
retro cars out there right now. I mean, if you
Sure.
Craigslist, try and find one or something like that, they're the prices on them are skyrocket as opposed to later models or stuff that got not quite as cool as stuff. I know here in California we got smog rules, and you can get a lot of those 240s that are you don't have to smog them and stuff. So that's another appeal. But the 240 is a huge heavy hitter for Nissan old school car guys.
That's exactly right. So it really got us, it was kind of our rocket booster there. So, the traffic was huge, drifting was, at the time, drifting was kind of just coming into its own. And so we just, we hit it just at the right time. And it wasn't a lot of hard work. I mean, I think for the past 12 years, I've been functioning on 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. But that's because there's a demand, and for me, where there's demand, you don't want to leave people hanging, and so that just vaulted us forward when we did that, when we brought everything together, and then more so than that, having the right people in place. Just having a good core group of staff that were like-minded and and enthusiasts. I mean, we talked before we started the podcast about how important that is. And, these guys aren't corporate entities. These guys aren't suit and tie guys. I build cars. I do restorations. I race. I do all of these things. I smash my knuckles every weekend and get greasy. If you guys are listening, if you're on a forum, check in with the forum owner and ask him what he's built lately. If he hasn't built anything, his forum sucks. And you can tell him I said so. So,
amen.
So you guys know, and it's like we said before, if you were going to tell me about, if I was going to look for some advice on, four-wheeling in my Xterra, or going out and putting a lift kit on my Titan, I certainly don't want to talk to a guy who drives a Camry to work and doesn't get out there and, like I said, bust his knuckles and mod his vehicle, because the credibility is just not there.
Right. What and preach on with the forum owners that
Greg Child, the preacher, keep it going, brother man.
Can I get a witness?
But timing is funny on these things, because when I started the Xterra Nation, it was crazy how the pieces all fell together. Like, I had a guy that was great with graphics that helped design the logo, and I had a guy that knew forums a little bit, and it was just meant to be. And that's what it sounds like, kind of what you were kind of going through, like all just the pieces were there for it.
Oh, absolutely. And hi. There's the other half of Nicoclub just walked through. So
all right.
Becky is our business manager, and she absolutely rocks the place. So, she's to blame for easily more than half of our success. So, if you don't have one of those, hang it up.
Exactly.
So, because you're not going to do it. And where were we?
We were bitching about non-Nissan forum owners.
There you go. Okay. So yeah, and you mentioned having somebody, having your experts and really tapping into your community. A lot of these guys are hiring things out, and once they lose that grasp of it, it's not theirs anymore. And so, we may not have the spectacular graphics that a lot of the other sites have, multimedia, things like that. But at the end of the day, the content is what people show up for. So if it's good, solid technical content, it's going to be really hard to beat.
Right. And early on, I started out, on Element Owners Club, and I remember when that was a little indie forum. Loved that little truck, and all of a sudden, one of the big boys come in and bought it out. And it was about the time I got rid of the car, and then I jumped to the Xterra, and fell in love with Club Xterra, man. And it was kind of what you're saying. It was mostly there was your faithful people, your admins that were actually Xterra owners, but then you'd have Big Daddy and his belt come in ready to knock some people down, and it was some guy from Canada that didn't even probably know what an Xterra was. He probably thought it was an X Trail or something.
Sure.
And I got tired of kind of dealing with the corporate side of that when you wanted to make changes, or you seem loving a vehicle like we all do. You see the trends of it and how you can change a forum real quick to adjust to that. And the big guys, they don't care really. So you could never have the keys to the forum to kind of build it. And
well, they're not actively managed,
right?
And that's the difference,
right? So, kind of, what was your next car that you felt like really put Nico on the map?
It's hard to say, because from there it was like wildfire, and so it went in every different direction. And there for a while we had some growing pains. I mean, we had some difficulties. People who were around back in the day will remember a site called Honda Tech, and at the time it was the largest automotive forum in the world, bar none, biggest thing in the world. So we had some issues with our software, our forum software, and it turns out it was stolen. And so we kind of pulled an Indianapolis Colts. We packed up in the middle of the night and bailed. And just in the nick of time, because the next day the court issued an injunction against any site that was using that software, and pretty much just shut them down. And we saw a huge site go from number one to non-existent overnight.
Wow! And
so we had some growing pains, because during all of that we were watching other areas take off. I mean, we were watching people come in and get jazzed about the Sentra, and we were having people come in and say, hey, we don't have a dedicated site for the Infiniti G20, or, hey, we've been modding these, the Datsun 720 pickups. And so all of a sudden we just kind of, I sat down with my staff and we went, what do we do? I mean, can we really expect to serve the entire brand lineup, or are we overextending ourselves? And I was always a big believer that if we're passionate about it, we can handle it. So let's just go for broke. And a good example is the trucks thing. I mean, we had people who maybe they owned a Q45, but maybe their wife drove an Xterra or a Frontier, and they didn't want to go somewhere else. They wanted to stay at their home. They wanted to, and their home was Nicoclub. So we worked with those people, and we said, if you're so enthusiastic about it, then maybe you should get on board, and maybe you should come in and give us a hand with it and share your expertise. So like I said, it just expanded and went nuts from there. So I can't point to one specific model that really did that for us, because after the Q45 and the 240SX, it went bananas from there. So
But do you
Hope
feel
that
like
helps.
no, that's a great answer to that. Do you kind of feel like maybe the globalization of these cars has helped your forum a little bit too? Because it went from each car being sort of individual to the late '90s of them starting to piece it all together into a couple cars.
Sure. It's been a blessing and a curse. I mean, there's always an upside. There's always a silver lining to some things. But you know, when with the Renault acquisition, merger, whatever you want to call it, the enthusiast vehicles of the late '90s when Nissan had its heyday, the irony of it is the company built some of its best vehicles then, the late '90s, early 2000s, but they were, they almost went under.
Right.
Chrysler didn't even want them, so the company almost crapped the bed back then. So then we, fast forward to the last few years, maybe even the last decade, when the company's really doing a lot with, we call them appliances. I mean, these cars that are just basically, they're an appliance. They're
Right.
a mode of transportation. It's
Right.
get you back and forth to work. And so the enthusiasm for those vehicles is minimal. I mean, so as we're watching this, we're thinking, enthusiasts are our bread and butter. And if people stop being enthusiastic about these cars, I'm pretty sure the Camry forum deals with this all the time, or, guys that are into Corollas. So whatever, think about a vehicle that's just point A to point B. So we really had to scratch our heads and go, are we going to be able to power through this? And fortunately we did, and came out on the other side relatively unscathed. But David, you had asked before about the static content, and I think that's really what saved us, was going in and saying, okay, taking care of the soccer mom who wants to know, what's this funny noise from my Nissan Quest, or, kid with their first car, how do I change the oil in a Nissan Versa? So we said, we've got to cater to those people. They have a need, and we have the expertise. So
Sure. And really what I've noticed in the small time I've owned forums is you're never going to build a community if you don't allow those new people to kind of join in. And I hate on the truck forums, especially the 4-wheel drive forums, it's the same questions over and over and over. And I've told the people that help me, I never want to see you bash somebody for asking how large of a tire can I put on my vehicle, because, or in your case, probably how low can you drop stuff, and because it wears you out, and if
sure,
a lot of these forums, their search functions are they're just horrible, but that new kid, as soon as you kind of upset him and say, hey man, you got 5 people that jump on there and say, hey, you're just a freaking idiot, or this and that, you've lost one guy, and maybe you've lost 5 guys, because maybe his buddy has the same vehicle, and he's going to go, hey, those guys are douchebags over there. And I can name a couple Nissan related, forums that neither we have any kind of affiliation with, but and they allow that, and that's what's really sad to me. And, you're talking about the enthusiast. That's our bread and butter. And with Nissan, how and it's all car manufacturers have changed kind of in the 2000s from the gas crunches, that really scared people like it did in the 70s. So they made these bland cars, and you lost your 240s and stuff like that. And that really is their heritage. And it's sort of sad that, because that was an affordable sports car for all intents and purposes, and they've kind of dropped the ball on that. And I don't even think they do anything with like the straight 6 they used to do in those cars and in all the Heritage Line cars.
Yeah, I think that's long gone.
Yeah, so now it's your little 4-cylinders, and I think we're going to start seeing all these little turbo 4s, and they'll be fun with that. So, kind of what is your background, man? I mean, obviously you own the king of all Nissan forums. What did you break into as a kid? What was your car of choice?
Oh, I was always a car fan. I mean, going back, my dad was not necessarily a gearhead. I mean, he had a love for cars and a passion for them. And so, I can remember being a little kid and him saying, "Okay, what's that?" And I had to come up with year, make, and model. And we played that game whenever we went anywhere, and I picked up on it. And so, the passion came from there. And just like the rest of us, we played with Hot Wheels cars, or we played with, we watched. I mean, younger guys, they watched the Fast and the Furious franchise, or it doesn't matter. However they got into it, they developed that passion, and it might be different from what our parents did, but so we were passionate about it. And I was always into, if I had an opportunity to take something apart and put it back together, sometimes it was successful. More often than not, it was a colossal failure, but it was fun. And so, in high school, I restored an old muscle car, and then I thought, wow, this is kind of a ticket into a rare group. And I got some props from some of the guys that I looked up to, the older guys that were restoring old muscle cars, or they were going to the races or whatever. And I thought, man, this is the way it works. So, like I said, it was like a ticket into a private club. And so, the passion developed from there. And I, dabbled in all different vehicles for quite a while. I mean, obviously through college, you drive your beaters, and that didn't mean they couldn't be cool. So, and I see a lot of that with, I see a lot of that with our members, some of our younger guys. Our demographic is fairly young. So, we see these guys coming in, and they've got their first car, and they want to lower it, they want to raise it, they want to put LED lights across the front of their truck or whatever, and maybe they're making $8.75 an hour, but they have the passion, they have the interest, and so I just have to remember, hey, that was me,
right?
And yeah.
Hey, Greg, and this just kind of popped into my head. Do you and you? I mean, I think you kind of have a much better insight to the car world than we do. And I'm kind of slowly getting into it as I'm actually like in line waiting for a guy to let me buy his 720 pickup, just because I'm looking for like a really old school Datsun, because I love the old school trucks. But as far as the car market, kind of the old car market. Have you seen like kind of like an influx of like the younger generation? I say younger, I'm not even that old, but like the younger kind of hipsterish, throwback to the 50s kind of generation, looking for those cars that are kind of like, the not cool cars, but they're cool now. The 510s and the weird,
totally.
those weird Datsuns that everybody's like, what is that thing? Have you seen an influx of that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's exciting to watch. I mean, you've got these guys that are getting jazzed about, a 78 510, which, I remember when they were relatively new. So, and I think, God, why would anybody even want to own that? Or,
yeah.
The B210,
Oh,
the most, going back. I mean, if I had to be honest, I ran around with a buddy in high school that had an old B210, and the thing was just a turd, and we beat the living crap out of it. And
my brother's second car was a B210, so the honeycomb
I think it was
hubcaps
everybody's
and
first or second car. So you had these things, and now you've got this group of people, these guys that are half my age, but it's just absolutely awesome. They're like, you know what? They're like, I found this thing for $600, and what can I do to it to make it cool? And the 44-year-old guy in me says nothing, because they were awful then and they're awful now. But the reality of it is I have to remember that car was built 20 years before they were born, and
Right.
they see it through different eyes, and I'm like, you know what?
Absolutely.
Let's dig into this thing. So
maybe that's their 57 Chevy.
It really is, and it's like, it's like you guys and I, if we think back over, something that just wasn't interesting back then. I mean, an old Plymouth Valiant, back when I was in high school, would be like, you'd get laughed out of the school parking lot. But, there's a forum. I mean, a huge forum for those guys, and so it's a collectible. So, yeah, I'm careful not to if somebody's into cars, I don't care what they're into. I mean, somebody's got to pick up the torch and carry this thing forward, and yeah, so we are seeing that, and you know what it's doing is it's driving the prices up. Good luck finding a 510 nowadays.
Right.
I'm telling you, I was literally looking the other day, and I mean, I'm in Southern California too, so that doesn't help anything. I mean, prices are skyrocketing. You know, you get an old dusty, old rusted out shell for $1,000 plus, but I don't know. I'm with you. You know, some of these cars, I'm like, man, that thing is ugly. But and then I remember back to some Dodge Dart that I owned when it was like the second car I bought, and my parents were like, don't buy that, it's gonna fall apart. I ended up selling it. It burned to the ground to the guy. But at the same time, those cars have the most character, and they are just stamped in like it's like a history mark in your a timeline in your life, and you kind of fall in love with those jalopies or whatever it was that got you from point A to point B, because there's the car that you made memories in or whatnot. And I think that's one of the big things with car enthusiasts like us, like you, you get into these cars that have character, and you go and you have fun in them, and you may dig into them, you may just drive them until they fall apart, but you make the memories, and I think the cars with more character, the more memories there are.
Well, maybe
I think I love that about these cars.
And maybe some of those cars, like the little 510 was just like a little rectangle. Maybe some of the interest with that is because every car today looks the same, and I'd like to think that Nissan is much different than Chrysler or GM or anybody, but we're all bowing down to the mighty miles per gallon, and there's only so much you can shape that car to do that. So maybe that's why these kids are they're wanting something interesting looking, and that's why when you see like the Juke, I love the Juke, and I know it's one of those vehicles that's either love it or hate it, but I think that's why it's been popular, is because it doesn't look like anything else.
It's different, and it's edgy, right?
And that's
when it's different.
When Nissan brought out the IDX concept, I've never seen the internet get so excited about or Nissan about a car, and it comes down to they're not going to build it because they can't stamp out 5 different cars based on that. So I really think they're doing themselves a disservice, and this is all manufacturers. We'll say Nissan. How many CUVs or SUVs do you need in your lineup? And it's
we've been fighting that battle for a long time. We have a thread, and it actually is pretty close to one of our most trafficked threads. And it's an article I wrote, and it was one of those nights where I was feeling creative and I was feeling aggravated, and I sat up and I wrote a long, scathing editorial about why Nissan needs a affordable rear-wheel drive sports car. I sat down and put my thoughts on in this thread, and the next thing I knew, it just blew up, and it got picked up by a couple of other sources, and it just went all over the place. And ultimately, because I think we rattled enough cages at corporate, we actually wound up having the president of Nissan North America pop in, register on the forum, and speak to everybody. Now, of course, it was a lot of executive speak, and
Sure.
it was very sanitized. They're politicians more than anything else, and so
at that level,
not a whole lot of content, not a whole lot. I mean, he wasn't telling us anything we didn't already know. But through that process, I think the entire community got some education on what it really takes to bring a product to fruition, a concept to fruition, and whether it makes sense to do it or not, and the kind of things that go into deciding whether that is an appropriate use of resources. So at the end of the day, the company answers to its shareholders, and the shareholders don't care if it has a 6-speed or a CVT. They just want to make sure it sells.
Right.
And truth be told, here's the deal: if I hold stock in a company, and they're catering to Daniel, David, and Greg, and we're a bunch of leadfoot yahoos who want this one vehicle that that isn't going to sell, then somebody's getting fired because I'm not making money as a shareholder. So, they really are beholden to that. They've got to look at what's gonna hammer the market. What are they going to sell 1 billion of? If you think about the best-selling cars of all time, they're boring, but they crank them out. They're reliable. They're a good car. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're just not an enthusiast vehicle.
Sure.
So we get it. And then ultimately, what came of all of that was, it was funny because how this discussion took a life of its own, and there was a lot of frustration because we were watching other manufacturer representatives talk about their product line and getting more involved with the community and listening, I guess is the best way to say it, is they were listening. And, those of us in the know, we understood why this wasn't going to happen. We understood why these brilliant suggestions from the 18-year-old who has his first car were not being implemented by, the fourth or fifth largest automobile manufacturer in the world. We got it. But try telling that to those guys, So, and unfortunately for that fella, he wasn't able to communicate that very well. And ultimately, his credibility was shot, and he's no longer with the company, but it didn't have anything to do with that. But he left to, I think he runs Aston Martin now. So I think he did okay for himself.
He's doing all right.
I really think that these companies have lost connection, much like probably our modern day politicians, but they've lost a connection with what real people want in a vehicle. And not everybody wants a rear wheel drive IDX, sitting in their driveway, but people do want some fun cars. And sadly, these new regulations that were put on us are killing a lot of fun vehicles.
Sure. Sure. And a lot of that is I'm pretty heavily involved in I'm a member of the SEMA Action Network, so I encourage anybody on the forums to get involved on that, and that seeks to influence legislation regarding automobiles, and so and it really looks out for the enthusiast community. So they've got they swing a big stick in Washington. It's just like anything else. And you mentioned politicians, if you can complain all you want, but if you're not going to get involved, then
sure,
you don't really have any say. So I encourage all of our people to get involved in that. And I do as well, and try to stay abreast of the issues. But again, it really just comes down to, and it's unfortunate, it really comes down to money, and they can crank out, they can crank out 100,000 Sentras, and the profit margin is there, and it's a global platform. They can sell them in China, they can sell them in Korea, and they play pretty well in the United States. So I can't say that I blame them.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed their sales figures since we've had a 9 months cheaper gas prices. Man, they are hurting right now on those little small car sales, and it's amazing to me how quick the market adjusts with these fuel prices to what people purchase. I don't know if there's no long-term vision on what people buy, but it's pretty interesting.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, America.
We like our big motors, and we like our horsepower.
All right, man, what a great half of that interview, and I can't wait to share the rest of it maybe in 2 weeks.
Greg knows how to talk, and we know how to listen. And sometimes I talk, but
I've never heard
really
you be
cares
so.
about what I say.
I've never heard you be so quiet in an interview, man.
I know. I'm just sitting there listening, man, I gotta know more stuff.
Well, we're gonna learn more stuff, and then the next half of this, man, I think kind of the first half we're talking cars, like you just heard, and we're gonna get into trucks with this next half. So. I know me and you are truck guys, and a lot of our audience starting out here are probably truck people. So hang in, guys, because it only gets better. Danaroo, man, we got El Presidente coming on.
The El Presidente
and I'm not
G-Packs.
I'm not talking Obama, guys. I'm talking about somebody a little bit bigger within the Xterra community.
Yeah, I like to think of him as a classic.
Very.
The old Stephen Brez, who the owner of the Beast, is has agreed to come on and chat with us and hang out and do a little bit of a show with us.
Right, and it's kind of exciting, man. Steve, he's kind of got an interesting background, man. He does film work and stuff and TV shows.
Yeah, Steven's a great dude. He's got a great nonprofit, Xterra, kind of an off-road organization out there on the East Coast, out Pennsylvania area.
But I think they do a lot of charity
Go
work with, like, I think women and breast cancer and stuff. I think he lost his mother to that, and so maybe we can get into talk about that a little bit. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just saying that, you know, I've met him a couple times now in Moab. Hung out with him, just great peoples. I think he's going to be. So I'm excited to have him on. He's good. He's a hilarious dude. He's fun to hang out with.
So Dan, are we going to be able to lock it down a live show for the people at Gone Moab? Are we going to have some Dave and Dan time?
Dude, the live show is going to be off the chisane.
All right, we'll post up on Facebook about it. But maybe. Obviously, we can't do it Friday night. I'm sure you're emceeing the raffle for Friday night, but
oh yeah, you know my raffle stylings are going to be going.
If you guys are in the Utah area for, when is that, Friday the
18th to the 21st,
I think, somewhere in there. Look at a calendar. We're too dumb to look at one. But the raffle, if you're in the area, and even if you don't wheel, man, come out to this raffle. They do a lot of good.
Hang out.
They do a lot of good with the money they raise. They're out there protecting the trails so that, you know, I don't care if you're on a car, bike, truck, feet, whatever. They're really trying to go out there and save the area, and they do great work. And I think Breslin will be out there too, man. So
Breslin will be out there. There's going to be tons of big names, tons of cool people. We're gonna, I think Thursday night we're gonna have a big barbecue at the condos. So make sure to come out to. That's gonna be the Xterra Performance Night. Thursday night we're gonna barbecue food. I'm gonna raffle off some special stuff for us. We're just gonna have a blast, I think.
All right, man. So let's see. I ain't got anything else to say, man. I think Greg took all my words tonight.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy. My computer's about to die, so it's probably a good time to kill it.
Well, for all those out there, I just want to say thank you for listening. Check us out on the web, www.nissannationpodcast.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on the moon as far as I know. I don't know. We're everywhere, man. And I want to say this is the Nissan Nation, and we are out.
Nissan Life.
Hey! Good luck.